Our story begins inside of the Grand Republic Medical Facility as Clone Trooper 5 is being introduced to Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. The Chancellor made it a priority to come here and see what was truly going on with Fives. What Palpatine knew was that his ultimate plan regarding the inhibitor chips was in peril. If Fives was able to truly talk to the Jedi about what the chips can do, then the entire plans of the Sith, plans that have been decades, if not centuries in the making, would fail all because of one clone. Palpatine could not have that, and so he instructed Nala Se to drug Fives secretly before they arrived. And as Fives was now introduced to the Chancellor, Shaak Ti, Nala Se, and a group of clones were all soon asked to leave by Palpatine. Everyone obviously thought this was a big mistake, as Palpatine should not be alone with someone as unstable as Fives, but Palpatine assured everyone he was safe, and he wanted to give Fives the privacy he deserves to talk about what is wrong. He was looking at Fives' eyes, and Palpatine could see his plans were going to work. The clone was injected with a psychosis drug, and so as soon as Palpatine was alone with Fives, he knew just how to truly activate this drug. The Chancellor whispered to Fives that he is right about everything. He created the clone inhibitor chips in order to use the clones to wipe out the Jedi, use the clones as mindless droids, and then they too will be discarded like rats. And as Fives heard this, anger and fear rose up in him extremely quickly, but luckily, Fives had thought ahead. Before getting off the shuttle, Fives grabbed a syringe that Nala Se left out, just in case something happened to him. And now that he had Palpatine within arm's reach, admitting everything, Fives acted, pushing the syringe right into Palpatine's abdomen. The Chancellor barely registered what was going on, but after feeling the small pinch, his vision quickly began to become very blurry. Palpatine groaned in anger as he fell to his knees, and the lone remaining Coruscant Guard clone ran at Fives, asking what was going on. Fives turned, wrestling the gun away from the clone, and he kicked him to the floor, and then he quickly turned to Palpatine, aimed, and fired one single shot into the back of his heart. Palpatine had finally called upon the Force to see through this poison, but it was too late. The blaster shot from Fives pierced his heart, and in one sudden moment he fell dead to the single clone. And for Fives, time seemed to stand still. He was frozen as he began to comprehend what just happened. But now the doors opened, as Shaak Ti began to run at him. Coruscant Guard troopers were closing in, Palpatine's Royal Guard began to move as well, and Fives turned, sprinting down the nearby stairs. He knew he had to get out of here, and he was now the most wanted person in the galaxy. As Shaak Ti ran in, the shock of what just happened hit her extremely hard. Chancellor Palpatine lay dead on the floor, and she calmed her mind as everyone else around her was freaking out. Shaak Ti turned, grabbing the inhibitor chip that belonged to Fives, and she ordered the Coruscant Guard to begin their search for him. She wants Fives brought in alive. The Coruscant Guard got their orders, and they quickly began their search, and not just the ones in this room, but all available Coruscant Guard clones, including Commander Fox, immediately began searching for Fives for what was right now being called an attempt on Palpatine's life, as Shaak Ti wanted to calm any more public panic. For now, she called over the Red Guards and had them help load Palpatine's body onto a stretcher, and it was loaded back onto the shuttle that she came here on. Nala Se asked what she was doing, and Shaak Ti said it was Jedi business, then told her to just wait here as the shuttle rose up and flew towards the Jedi Temple. When she arrived and ran through the temple gates with the stretcher floating behind her, there was a sheet over Palpatine's body to conceal who it was. More and more Jedi turned with curiosity, as Shaak Ti hurried through the temple until she arrived at Master Yoda's quarters. Yoda was here with Mace Windu, as Shaak Ti entered and pulled down the sheet to reveal to the Jedi that Chancellor Palpatine had been killed by a clone trooper. Mace Windu had to calm himself down, and he asked what could possibly have led to this. And so Shaak Ti pulled out the inhibitor chip, saying that Fives has been going insane ever since his chip was removed. But it became especially bad as they entered Coruscant. Yoda put his hand to his chin, thinking hard, and he said it's about time the Jedi truly study these chips. He continued on, saying that there has to be more to this, and if any clone can simply snap upon the chip being damaged, then the entire galaxy could be in danger. Shaak Ti agreed, and she left the room to bring this inhibitor chip to the state-of-the-art Jedi research room. She gave the research droids the chip, and it began extensive scans and probing to try and find every possible thing about the chip. Meanwhile, leaks and rumors about Palpatine's death were beginning to spread. One of the royal guards was overheard by a group of people talking about Palpatine being killed by a clone, and this rumor was spreading like wildfire among the citizens and the senators. And after many hours, even Anakin Skywalker and Captain Rex found out. But around the same time, Grandmaster Yoda and Master Windu called all of the Jedi Knights and Masters on Coruscant to the Great Assembly Room in the temple, and Windu would tell them the truth. Chancellor Palpatine has been killed by Clone Trooper 5s. Anakin, upon hearing this, had to grab the wall to stop himself from falling over. Palpatine was like a father to him, and 5s was a great friend. Windu continued, saying that the Coruscant Guard has been searching for him with no luck, and they're going to begin sending Jedi out to find 5s before he can find a way off the planet. And so, Anakin Skywalker would begin his search along with Captain Rex, looking everywhere for 5s until Rex received a private transmission from 5s himself, saying that he is afraid, but he can explain everything. Rex would tell Anakin about this, and Anakin told Rex not to tell anyone else. He wants to speak to 5s alone, and if they are interrupted, then there is a chance that 5s may snap. And so the two of them went alone to the warehouse that 5s was hiding in, and as Anakin and Rex entered, 5s trapped them in a ray shield before stumbling out of his hiding spot. Anakin was angry at 5s, but he still hadn't really processed that he killed Palpatine. It seemed impossible, but 5s emerged now, and he began rambling on about how Palpatine was behind everything. He knew about the chips because he created them. He created the clones to kill the Jedi, and the Jedi were going to look like the bad guys. Rex and Anakin looked to each other. 5s was rambling, not making much sense. So they tried calming him down and saying they hear him, they're listening to him, and it would take at least 10 more minutes of convincing until 5s finally released them, only for Rex to immediately shoot 5s with the stun blast, knocking him out so they could bring him back to the temple. By the time 5s was in the temple, the Senate had gathered as Mas Amedda was confirming the reports that Chancellor Palpatine has been assassinated by a clone who'd gone insane. Mas Amedda was initially in a panic when he heard about this, but he quickly realized that he was next in line to take over, and so Mas took over the power vacuum and was now spreading panic theories among the senators. Mas, with no evidence, said that 5s may have been injected with a drug created by the Separatists. Dooku and his evil partners have found a way to turn Republic troops against the Republic, and the only answer now is to wipe them out completely. The Senate, in a state of confusion and anger, cheered on Amidda's bloodthirsty remarks. And inside of the Jedi Temple, Clone Trooper 5s was knocked out on a medical table as the Jedi were analyzing the research from the inhibitor chip. The temple had some of the best researching tools in the galaxy, and after the hours of scans and probing, the Jedi were shown a list of contingency orders coded deep inside of the chip. There were 150 of them, but upon further research, the Jedi discovered something even more worrying. If activated, these chips would force the clones to execute whatever order was called upon, and the most notable of these orders was Order 66, which would activate the execution of the entire Jedi Order. And Anakin told the Jedi here what 5s was saying. He was rambling about how Palpatine was planning to use the clones to kill the Jedi, and now it was beginning to make some sense. But there were so many questions. How would Palpatine have been able to create the clone army? From everything they knew, it was either Jedi Master Sifo Dyas or a mystery man called Tyrannus that created the clones. And so, Windu asked if perhaps Palpatine was secretly Tyrannus. But Yoda shook his head. Now it was all beginning to make sense to him. If Palpatine was truly working to destroy the Jedi Order and take over the Republic using the clones, then creating war would be the perfect way to do it. And in order to create war, he would basically have to be leading both sides. So Yoda knew who Tyrannus was. It had to be Dooku. And in order to confirm this theory, Yoda immediately had Palpatine's body tested for midichlorians. A droid began the test, and the results were rather chilling. Palpatine, before death, was one of the most powerful beings in the entire galaxy in terms of midichlorian counts. Everything was unraveling in this room, as many Jedi Masters came to similar conclusions. Palpatine was the Sith Master all along, in charge of Dooku. And without Palpatine around any longer to pull the strings, Dooku could have free reign to take over the Separatists. Mace Windu looked around with a grim look on his face, as he said that this war could get worse before it begins to get better. But perhaps they could still stop that from happening. If the Jedi reveal the truth to the galaxy, then this war was essentially created by Dooku and Palpatine working together. Then the galaxy may unite around defeating Dooku and his close allies after learning how corrupt he is. So Windu, Yoda, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Shakti, and Captain Rex would go to the Senate where Mas Amedda was finishing up his speech, and they would request to speak, as Shakti said she was there when it all happened. Mas Amedda accepted the request for the Jedi to speak, as the Senate was clamoring to hear what happened from Shakti. But as soon as the Jedi pod got to the center, Mace Windu plugged in a hologram of everything they'd found out, and his voice boomed out around the Senate rotunda. telling everyone that they have been played for years. They first showed the inhibitor chip, revealing all of the contingency orders, including orders to wipe out the entire Jedi Order or the entire Senate if Palpatine decides to. The Jedi explained how the clones could be turned into mindless droids in a sudden instant if Palpatine decided to do so, and to make matters worse, they have evidence that Palpatine was a Sith working directly with Dooku to create this war. This evidence would not only be shown to the Republic Senate, but it would be sent out across the galaxy, all the way even to the Separatist Senate, as they began to see the clues that Palpatine and Dooku worked together to create this war. And the Separatists, the large majority of whom just wanted to create a new system of government, separate from the Republic they saw as corrupt, were now seeing that their system was just as corrupt as the Republic that they tried to get out of. What a conundrum it was. This entire war was being orchestrated by their leader, and the citizens in Separatist planets would begin to revolt. On planets like Raxus, Caternamoidia, Munilist, the people began to fight the droids occupying their planet, turning against each other in order to try and get rid of Dooku. In this war, trillions of innocent beings have died in the crossfire already, and so the revolt was quickly spreading. On Sereno, Dooku was sitting in his castle chair, trying to take all of this in, and within just a few hours, his master was killed. The Jedi discovered that Palpatine had the Force, and they concluded that he had to be the man called Tyrannus behind creating the clones. The Sith plan was crumbling away, and he began to panic. General Grievous would soon contact him, asking what they are supposed to do, and Dooku knew there was only truly one move. They must take Coruscant, take over the galaxy by force. And so Dooku ordered Grievous to send all available ships to Coruscant immediately. And on Coruscant, the Jedi and the Senate were receiving reports of countless planets cutting ties with Dooku and the Separatist Alliance, as they wondered if perhaps Dooku would surrender. It seemed like his only option. But an instant later, the Coruscant skies were filled with hundreds of ships suddenly emerging from hyperspace. Alarms around Coruscant began to blare, as everyone realized the same thing. This is a final, desperate attack to take over the galaxy by Dooku and Grievous, and the Battle of Coruscant would erupt with a fury the galaxy had not seen in centuries. The desperate Separatist forces, led by Dooku and Grievous, descended upon the galactic capital with the intent of complete domination. The skies above Coruscant were lit with the flashes of battle, as countless Separatist warships, battle droid carriers, starfighters closed in on the city world. Explosions rippled across the atmosphere, sending tremors through the towering spires and skyscrapers. The death of Palpatine, revealed as a secret ally of Dooku, left a power vacuum, and Dooku, now fully embracing the role of a conqueror, sought to seize control of the galaxy by force. The Coruscant blockade fought hard to stop any Separatist forces from entering the planet, but it was an impossible task as thousands of droids were pouring into the streets. In the Senate district, chaos was reigning. Clone troopers stood in formation as waves of battle droids poured from dropships. Yoda, Mace Windu, and Shaak Ti stood at the forefront of it, their lightsabers flashing as they moved through huge squads of droids. Yoda leapt into battle with his unmatched speed, cutting down tons of super battle droids, using the Force to disrupt tanks trying to advance on the city. Windu shattered droid after droid as he became a whirlwind of a purple blur, and Shaak Ti led the clones with a calm poise as they fought to defend the countless citizens and senators trying to evacuate, directing the droids to choke points and ambush positions as they defended the Senate building from overwhelming odds. Gunships roared overhead, unleashing blaster fire as the clones held the lines, while the Separatist forces continued to press forward with relentless power. And within the Jedi Temple, the battle raged here as well as a Separatist siege began to infiltrate the temple itself. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood alongside Jedi Masters Agen Kolar and Kit Fisto as the three main defenders of the temple. The grand halls of the temple were now torn apart by the destructive power of the droid armies as they fired upon the temple time and time again. Evacuation teams got the younglings out of here, and Obi-Wan directed Padawans to evacuate deeper into the temple, while he and the fellow masters took up positions to hold back the mechanical droids. Agen Kolar fought on the stairs with many temple guards, keeping waves of droids back, his blue blade cutting through droidekas and battle droids. Kit Fisto leapt from platform to platform, tentacles flowing behind him, as his saber sliced through rows of droids, and as he jumped across the Grand Hall, he saw someone enter through an area of a broken wall. It was General Grievous with a group of his Magna Guards. So Fisto called Kenobi back to him to aid him in this duel, as it would be a long-awaited rematch. Above Coruscant, the battle in space was no less intense. Republic Venators' Separatist warships clashed in a battle that rivaled even the space battles of the Old Republic. Their cannons were exchanging devastating blows as starfighters weaved between their massive vessels. Leading the defense in space were Anakin Skywalker, Plo Koon, and Saesee Tiin. Anakin was a blur of speed, darting between vulture droids and tri-fighters. His piloting skills were unmatched, as Plo followed closely behind, admiring Anakin's piloting skills. He strafed through the battlefield, taking out entire wings of enemy fighters, while performing aerial maneuvers that left both allies and enemies in awe. Plo Koon, always calm and composed, led his squad of starfighters, coordinating their strikes against the Separatists. The Jedi were guiding their troops to precise hits on critical droid targets, taking down command ships, disrupting formations. Saesee Tiin had taken a legion of clones, and they were fighting on top of the Invisible Hand flagship with spacesuits on. Saesee called to Plo and Skywalker, proclaiming that they can take Dooku right now, and so the three Jedi would soon board Dooku's ship to end this great battle. As the battle stretched across the planet, every district of Coruscant was a battleground. At the edges of the industrial sectors, clone commandos fought against the advancing droid armies, trying to shut down the power grid. ATTE walkers stomped through the streets, their massive cannons unleashing devastating barrages against spider droids and tanks. Civilian buildings crumbled, explosions erupted, the skies darkened with smoke from the fires raging across the city. The war was in the heart of the Republic, and it was showing no mercy. Chaos was threatening to engulf everything, and the planet was just trying to survive. Inside the temple, Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto battled with Grievous. The cyborg spun his four sabers, swinging at the two Jedi trying to take him down. Obi-Wan raised his blade in a defensive stance, deflecting away two of the sabers as they came down with extremely heavy swings. Kit Fisto moved with elite agility, trying to cut through the general's defenses. The temple floors were cracking as Grievous planted himself hard into the ground, ripping apart the walls around him as the lightsabers continued to clash against each other with more intensity as the duel continued on. Grievous kicked both Jedi, and he began crawling at them, grabbing them and slamming both Fisto and Kenobi hard into the wall, as the Jedi slowly recovered. Grievous attacked with a new savage strength, his four sabers coming down in a relentless swing. His strikes were brutal, mechanical limbs moving with unnatural speed and power, but Obi-Wan's mastery of his defensive form allowed him to absorb the onslaught, while Fisto weaved in and out of the duel, using his speed to stay one step ahead of the monstrous general. Sparks flew as lightsabers collided. Grievous's rage grew with every failed attempt to land a blow. The battle tore through the loud, battle-filled corridors of the temple. Columns were shattered, debris rained down as the three of them moved with great speed. And after a long fight, Fisto and Obi-Wan were finally able to cut through Grievous's wrists. Two of his lightsabers fell away, and Grievous was about to angrily charge forward when a blaster bolt hit right in his abdomen, and the Jedi looked over to see Fives was awake and fighting in this battle. Grievous fell backwards, and the two Jedi were able to move in, destroying him once and for all. And aboard the Invisible Hand, the three Jedi, Saesee Tiin, Plo Koon, and Anakin Skywalker, were beginning to overwhelm Dooku. The duel between them was intense on the bridge, sparks flying as sabers collided. Dooku extremely strong, and in one swift motion he was able to deliver a fatal strike, killing Saesee Tiin with ease, leaving Plo and Anakin to face Dooku alone. But Plo moved back in, testing Dooku's defense, with Anakin unleashing a more aggressive attack, his own blade cutting through the air with extreme power. Dooku was pushed to his limits. Plo's steady and disciplined fighting complemented Anakin's ferocity, and Dooku had to retreat under their pressure. And with a swift final strike from Anakin, followed by Plo Koon delivering the final blow, the duel was ended with a Jedi victory. And after this victory, the Jedi wasted no time bringing the entire ship down. The two of them ran to the reactor room, calling upon the Force together, causing this ship to begin its implosion. With the reactor on the verge of exploding, Anakin and Plo made their escape, sprinting through the corridors as the ship shuddered violently. Explosions ripped through the hull, flames engulfed the inner chambers of the Separatist flagship, and in their final moments on the ship, they reached an evacuation shuttle just as the Invisible Hand erupted into a fiery explosion behind them, torn apart from the inside. This would lead to the beginning of the end for the Separatist alliance, as after many hours of battle, the Republic was emerging victorious. And roughly 24 hours later, a treaty would officially be signed between the Republic and Separatists to end this war, after the corrupt leaders on both sides were dealt with, once and for all. It was all over, and peace could slowly return to the galaxy. Coruscant was in ruins, but a united galaxy would begin to rebuild after Mas Amedda was investigated and found guilty of knowing Palpatine's ultimate plans. Senator Ryo Chuchi would become Chancellor, and she would gather people to help build Coruscant back up, as the galaxy as a whole would begin to rebuild itself after the war. Padme Amidala put together relief missions to countless worlds that were ravaged by the war, and she recruited thousands of clones to help on these relief missions. The clones enjoyed this, as it was a great contrast from the horrors of the war they were created for. Around the galaxy, The clones became known as heroes to everyone, Separatist or Republic, that needed medical relief. And within a year, the galaxy had been united like never before, and Clone Trooper 5s was seen as a hero for exposing the truth, as the Jedi Order and the Republic was spreading in through the galaxy to ensure safety and security. And folks, that is our story for today. I always enjoy the ones with 5s, as that entire arc, every little moment, every little thing could have changed the course of Destiny, because Order 66 was a big thing, obvious. Yeah, that's a hot take. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this story. I just wanted to do, what if Palpatine what if 5s killed him? Ultimately, it's pretty hard to believe. I mean, had to really get an upper hand on him. It's the Dark Lord of the Sith, but it's a what if, so he just had an extra little poison needle, put it in his thigh, and Palpatine goes, gets shot in the heart. Anyways, let me know what you thought this season. Hope you guys enjoy. Please leave a like, and I'll see you in the next video.